Sculptform, you might say, in its very DNA, rises to challenge. Reverse psychology works on us very well. So if we see something we love, that we really default to yes rather than to no. We're actually really inspired by what the architect does and what that end result is. So we're not just focused on supplying a product to a project, but we really see ourselves as integral to the architectural design team.
Hey everyone, really excited to be here today. My name is Blake Proud and I'm part of the business development team here at Sculptform, and that was our managing director, Jeremy, you just heard from, who was talking a little bit about what really inspires us as an organization. We're also joined today by the lovely Bruno Mendes on the right of your screen and Sue Fenton in the middle from Bagot, who were part of the team that really helped design the beautiful space that you saw in that video and what we're sharing with you today. Now, we were really hoping we'd have a chance to share their beautiful creation with you guys in person. However, COVID being COVID means, unfortunately, we're not able to really leave the safety of our home at the moment. But I guess one of the real positives to come out of COVID is we're now super agile and we're able to do things like adapt and adjust, and we're flexible, and we've got plenty of experience with online platforms now. So today we're utilizing a platform called Livestorm. It's really great from a user engagement perspective. There's a chat box on the right-hand side. We encourage you guys to say, hey, let us know where you're tuning in from. And then there's actually a questions tab at the top of the screen above that chat window. So today, as we work through, if you have any questions, we encourage you to put those in there. Make sure you direct them to who those questions are relevant to. And at the end of our presentation, we'll get across to those questions. So just really quick in terms of an agenda, I'm going to quickly just introduce Sculptform as a company and talk really quickly about why we felt we needed a Melbourne-based presence. And I'm going to throw you over to the Bagot team, so over to Bruno and Sue, who will talk a little bit through the design philosophy and how they've come up with the beautiful space that we're super excited to share with you guys today. At Sculptform, we're a modular feature lining system manufacturer. So we're 100% Australian owned and operated, and our head office is in Bendigo. So all the aluminium and timber material that you see today is our product. And then there's a proprietary system that sits in behind that product, which really makes the system easy to detail, easy to specify, and super easy to install. Our focus as an organization is it's really on bridging the gap between beautiful designs and buildable solutions. So we're all about systems that bridge the gap between those two elements. And we're really proud of the studio. The studio is an example of kind of what we can achieve and what our product capabilities are and our capabilities as an organization. I think that's full credit to Bagot for taking our base level product and kind of pushing the boundaries of what we can achieve. So as you look at all the imagery today, I really encourage you guys to look at the curves as well. It's a prime example of Bagot coming in and pushing our capabilities. Just to give you guys a little bit of context on why we created the design studio. So we've been in Bendigo for about 15 years now, and we really recognized we had a need for a Melbourne-based presence. We're all about collaboration with the architectural and design community, not just at the early stages of conceptualization, but also working through a project life cycle. So working with main contractors and installers as well. So we really recognized that we needed a space in the CBD where we were able to collaborate and work with the industry. And then Bagot really helped kind of push the evolution of that idea and that concept and what that looked like. So I'm just going to show you a quick 2 to 3 minute video, which will just give you some snapshots, some imagery of the studio to provide some context. And then I'll throw you over to Bruno and to Sue. And you may just need to allow sound for this video. All right, so that was just a little bit of imagery just to help with some context. That's our space, which we're super excited to be sharing with you guys today. And I'll now throw you over to the Woods Bagot team. Bruno, if you want to share your screen.
Will do, and I think, Sue, you're kicking off, so I'll share the screen and
take
it away.
Good morning, everyone. We'd just firstly like to respect and acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet, and we pay our respects to elders past and present, as well as to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the wider Melbourne community and beyond. Indigenous sovereignty has never been ceded. So my name's Sue Fenton. I'm from Woods Bagot. I've worked with Bruno for many years, interior designer. I just thought I'd just kick off with a little bit of background before Bruno launches. We got a call from Sculptform team to see if we were interested in participating in a small competition to design a new showroom space so that they could have a home base in the city. And with the successful design proposal, this project has taken us all on a really exciting journey. This project fits perfectly into the open house theme this year of Reconnect. As you'll see, the space is much more than a showroom or a workplace. It is a catalyst for connecting makers, craftspeople and the design community. More than that, it acts as an open event space that connects our broader community. And it also kicked off at the beginning of lockdown. So there's been a few little windows of opportunity for it to sort of come to life. And we all look forward to being able to engage with the space a lot more in the future in the physical sense. So thanks for coming this morning, and I'll hand over to Bruno to share the process now, and I'll reconnect at the end. Over to you, Bruno.
Hi everyone, thank you for joining. Times we live in, doing this virtually would have been great to be in this space, as Blake and Kate mentioned, but we power on and we'll do our very best to take you on the journey of what has been a great journey with Sculptform and the team. So this project here is really, it's really a work in progress. We've got a great relationship of working with Sculptform over the years. And so for us, the journey has really, probably over 15 years ago or more even, we've been really part of their journey in terms of really small projects where we're really developing a lot of, with them obviously, a lot of the detailing, really understanding the capabilities of what the product could do. And again, credit to Sculptform in really allowing us to push it and test what they could do. And they certainly never said, this is the product and this is the off-the-shelf sort of product and this is how you have to use it. It was very much, what can we do with it? So from really small projects to much larger education projects, we'll sort of seen here, to some of our more sort of complex and recently completed education projects. This one here being Deakin, recently completed, also has a number of fantastic moments, to probably this project here, which is the Christchurch Convention Centre, which also is an exemplar project in really what Sculptform has been able to do with us in completely customising a series of these are quite deep concave and convex panel systems that span over sort of 15 metres high within some of these spaces. And they've worked with us to really develop a lot of these details. So we're really quite fortunate, I think, to be able to be working with them and working with and pushing sort of the boundaries of what their products can do. So what is this point of difference with Sculptform? Well, at least for us, this point about collaboration is something that's critical. On every project that we've done, we've never worked alone. That's really been with them at the table. So being obviously, I'm an architect, I'm a principal at Woods Bagot, one of the designers, to be able to kind of be working with the people that work with their product, hands-on, developing it or developing, custom details for the projects that we do, is something that just happens more and more on projects these days. So, I mean, that's the reason why we love obviously working with them. So when we as Sue mentioned, when we got a tap on the shoulder, Sculptform, to their credit, ran a very open and fair competition with a series of other practices. It was a very short comp. I think from memory it was only a couple of weeks, and we were quite excited that they were moving to the CBD and they were running this comp. So it was a short, sharp comp. We went and saw the site. Here it is here. This is what it is. Pretty standard sort of CBD site with ceiling tiles. Not really that inspiration, but also quite constricted in terms of head height and sort of one half of the floor plate. So this was the framework that we had to work with, to be honest. And very early on, we started thinking, we had a brief. Sculptform gave us a brief. It's obviously their workplace, but we sort of pushed those boundaries of what a workplace could be, as far as really blending what they do and what a single space can kind of be. It's not just a space for a series of staff members to be sitting at their desk. As I mentioned earlier, these guys make things and they work with industry to evolve their details. So we thought, the workshop is something that's almost front and center and something that really needs to be celebrated in the space, as opposed to being the hidden away. One of the other key elements was this idea of the showroom, the arrival experience, the space being used for industry events as well. So you can kind of see how the typology of workplace is really beginning to kind of go beyond just being a workplace. It's a gallery. It's where they manufacture things. They have meetings. They have events. It's a gallery to showcase their items. So it's all these things in one. And so that for us, it was really quite exciting to make sure that this kind of marriage of all these uses was really clearly sort of expressed, and nothing is sort of back of house, much in the way that when you go to a restaurant these days, a kitchen is something that is front of house. It's an experience. People love sitting at the bar. The kitchen is no longer something that's hidden away. In this idea, or at least this concept, we also wanted to have that kind of notion of putting the workshop front and center so that it was visible and people can kind of see how it works. So the way that, I suppose the way that the kind of space works, obviously we've got a very fixed shell, and this was one of the very, very early sketches which kind of really delineated sort of almost like a path, not just the way that you circulate through the space, but also the way that the ceiling was expressed, flowing through the space and through the various sort of settings, from formal meeting areas all the way through to the workplace area, past the workshop, and then sort of the arrival gallery as well. So it's a one big continuous journey through the entire space, and there's no sense of back of house or front of house. So the arrival sort of sequencing is really a space that greets everyone. It has the largest sort of auditorium space for presentations as well. It has a bar. It's very much a front of house experience where people will probably grab a drink. They might sit down for a while before they sort of meander through to the various spaces. But really, this is where everyone sort of arrives. Some of the other sort of key spaces are the gallery sort of spaces where it is analog, at least this one, and then there's a sort of a digital gallery space which has a screen for formal presentations and some other sort of elements that happen in these spaces. And then as you sort of circulate through, the collab really in the middle is the sort of front and center space. It's on show, it's glazed, the machinery is in there, a lot of their products are in there. So the idea is that you can come in here, well, I can bring a client into this space, and we can probably workshop with the Sculptform team a potential detail or thinking about a new clip system that might work. And so the idea is that it's an interactive, we take clients on that journey of the crafting of details and the product. And then there is a small component of workplace in terms of work settings. Again, it's open plan. and really that happens at this point here. So, and then just one last sort of element was obviously, there are a series of, they're almost like the leftover spaces, but there's the boardroom areas and some other sort of breakout meeting room areas, and the more sort of collaborative one, which is where there's a desk as well that's sitting sort of in the main space. And the last sort of piece that we did for that conference, I think from memory, like I said, 2 weeks, and we did this little 3D print in our office to try and sort of delineate the key idea of the project, which was the fact that you came into a space where gallery, workshop, workplace, events, everything's on show and is one. And the way that this sort of model pulled apart sort of also expressed what we were trying to do with the ceiling, to try and mimic the way that you flow through the space as well. This was the only render that we did, so that material that I've just presented then was really the 2 weeks worth of material, and we were quite fortunate to win the competition. So we're really excited. We had a very short period to really produce in a series of options. We didn't fully document the project. Obviously, Sculptform led the build as well. So we really worked with them to on site, but really provided sufficient detailing, not fully documented, but enough detailing and thought to enable them to build the thing and work it out. Because to be honest, again, this was a very experimental project in the sense that we were both working together to really work out how to really achieve the complexity of some of the geometry. We had 4 options that we worked with. There was this sort of initial option, which was more of a linear sort of approach to the circulation, where the battens really flowed in the single direction through the space. We looked at a series of other options and kind of looked at how nature is actually the best at doing this sort of thing, whether there were any cues from understanding these kind of rhythmic sort of patterns, and whether the answer was sort of there. To be honest, it made it even harder. We thought, leave nature alone. We looked at how we could possibly make something complex seem probably a little easier to build. And really, these were just explorations that, to be honest, we were really pushing the boundaries with the team, with the Sculptform team. And I think what we ended up sort of landing on was a sort of a halfway house between something that expressed the movement through the space, gave them enough movement to change the way that this was built on site as well. So there's a little bit of flexibility as well with the way that the battens are laid out in this sort of radial sort of way. The thinking here was that the number of points that were on the inner arc were pretty much almost the same number of points that were on the outer arc. So through that, we began to kind of develop this scheme, and this scheme was the one that kind of, we all felt more comfortable with expressing and moving forward with. So the refinement process, then we took it into Grasshopper, and again, just having the ability to have these tools to begin to rationalize the geometry, the number of pieces, to try and actually also identify, the number of types of bends and all of that. So a lot of this was really a process that was quite collaborative with the Sculptform team. We were showing them what we were thinking, and they were telling us also what was kind of possible. So, there were some pretty sort of complex little moments, but we did enough to at least get the idea across that then they were comfortable with, and then setting out on their journey. So this was sort of the final kind of render that we kind of got to after that sort of initial sort of schematic design process. And to be honest, it really does, if you look at what has been built and what this render, very early render, kind of delineated, the two are relatively similar. So credit to their team to really stick to what we set out from the very beginning. Sort of a more detailed plan, I mean, just to kind of show people how it kind of works. I mean, it is nestled within an existing pretty traditional brick building on Queen Street in the Melbourne CBD. There is a common lobby where everyone enters in, so other tenants that use the rest of the building come into this common lobby, whereas the Sculptform sort of entry is off that lobby. And so our scope was really work within this interior. As you can see, you come into this lower sort of arrival area. There are these steps that go through, really working within the existing framework. There's also the workshop with some services and some DDA facilities and toilets, and also meeting rooms, and sort of these sort of open collaborative areas here as well, which are more sort of, writable surfaces to kind of have more of an interactive sort of setting. So they all do slightly different things to try and sort of play on, how best to engage with clients and teams and the industry. This is all we did in terms of a pack for documentation. It was really quite light on, deliberately light on, because we were quite used to working with Blake's team in terms of really working with them about what is possible from a detailing point of view. So we didn't want to over detail this thing, but we also, like I said, just provided enough to kind of work with them. Now, very fortunate for us and the project, for them to purchase this incredible machine, or a series of machines, which allowed us to bend timber it just turns timber into jelly. It's been around for technology isn't new, but when you think about what Eames were doing with bending timber and steam, but for the Sculptform team, having this ability to bend timber in this way with steam was a new thing, and this project is really a testing ground for how they really began to get some consistency in the bends, get some consistency in the way that, repetition in all the arcs. So there's a bit of testing. I know the guys will talk more about it because they really lived that journey from start to end. But we got to a point where, it was that abundant and that consistent that all the radiuses were actually really quite good. So the clip system, we used this standard clip system that they have, where the battens are routed on the back. They're all clipped in. There's a gap between each of the battens that allows for the acoustic system to also be housed from behind. So it's a really clever system from that point of view. So from an acoustic point of view, it really does work quite well. And the gap can vary. And this was the other kind of key thing. So as the geometry kind of weaves its way around the floor space, you do have these moments where the gap does vary a bit. And having that ability to do that was pretty much fundamental to making it all work. So credit to them. These are just some construction shots. We were coming in, as often as possible to see it progress, and it was really quite exciting to be part of the journey on site with them. Credit to the team again to, set out to just lay out, I don't know how many pieces in the end. I think we could kind of strip that information from the computer model, but you can see that it is quite complex. We also looked at these kind of almost like these hockey stick kind of turn down details where there's solid carved pieces as well that have been that allow the kind of the ends to terminate these elements here and create the continuation around some of these moments. There's a close-up detail of it on site being worked out and developed. And we we also, again, we were very lucky to have a client that was willing to actually explore things as well. And we never really got to complete this detail, but I know that for the next project, we know that there's, the humble beginnings of another sort of standard detail here, where what we wanted to do was to kind of have these big solid elements as they sort of regress down into the ground. They basically, you know, the solid component of this piece here really just was hiding the acoustic element. I mean, we're up against it in time as well, so we've also had to be a little bit realistic at times as well. So again, you know, they were willing to explore those things, and these are pretty much the finished images. All these images are taken by Peter Bennett, so credit to Peter, who obviously came in for a couple of shoots for different timing. The main arrival space, the workspace or the workshop on show, the workstations to the right here, the arrival area with the bar, and then a little auditorium space here. There is a drop-down screen that you can kind of just see there that just pops down for any presentations. The gallery to the left, this battening system here is also another system that they have, which is extruded aluminium. These are just some bronze anodized items that we put in here. They're quite beautiful as a product as well. So the space is also a showcase to, you know, a variety of other products that they also have, which is also demonstrated within the gallery, seen through there where these walls pop out to sort of show a series of other products that Sculptform have. The backdrop to the city is actually quite nice as well. You can see the showroom from the street in, but you can also have really fantastic views out from this curtain is sheer. I mean, it does get pulled across as well. So you do have a really nice sort of engagement also with the street, which pedestrian footpath is pretty much almost at grade there at one point. I'll just quickly flick through these photos. I'm pretty much almost done, but you can kind of get a good feeling for the space. We work quite hard to also conceal some of the lighting. Some lighting elements are obviously on show. Others are concealed within the battens. We get some kind of really nice moments of glows where the lights are up higher and glow down through the lights, through the battens. A little waiting area, and then this kind of tunnel space that takes everyone through. To the right here, there's a TV with some seating where you can actually have live presentations as well. And then just some of the other moments. It's quite a simple space. It's not that big, the way you circulate through it. You can see some of those other lighting moments there that I was talking about there, where you get these kind of really sort of interesting moments of how the space is lit up. And the workshop itself, and the workshop's obviously front and center, so we're quite happy to have this on show. I mean, these guys do use this space. A lot of their products are also just behind me in terms of there's a shelving element that has a lot of their standard products and products that are ready to be cut and modified and make live models to show clients. There are also these kind of other moments in the space where we're trying to get in natural light into the space as much as possible. So you do have these moments where the sort of the interior skin or the skeleton of this thing touches the perimeter building, and where it does touch and where it does align with some of the existing windows. They are moments where, you know, you can look out and allow light. These are the workstations. Obviously, these photos were taken just before the Sculptform team moved in. Again, they're all custom-made workstations with all the cable management systems that just sit within there, and then the screens just pretty much sit in the middle there. So they all sit together in the space, which is quite good. And you can kind of see there's some pretty sort of interesting moments where that full sort of loop of the ceiling detailing, that where it clashes into the main arrival ceiling moment. It's sort of a great little moment there as well. Pretty much get to the end. And again, like I said, a lot of these details were all laboured over. It was really amazing to see these guys. You can see the variety of pieces that kind of make this doesn't just go and sort of join together in plan, it also goes down in section as well. So it recedes back down to a point there, which is something that the guys laboured over. But again, the showroom really takes, and this is something that we were quite happy with. I mean, the reason why it's the singular use of the material is something that we were really quite passionate about from the beginning, because this moment from the street looking in is quite a powerful one. The warmth of the interior space back out to the street condition is something that's quite contrasting and quite beautiful. And this last image I quite like from Peter Bennett's, where you really get the contrast of the old building with the car park, and another little moment here down a laneway, and you can look up into the space that shows that kind of sinuous sort of snake, really. So that's it, really. Happy to take any questions, or I know I've sort of just been trying to power through this rather quickly. I know people have been posting some questions, but happy to take any questions, or if anyone has anything, or if Blake, you want to.
Yeah, definitely. I might. I've got a few questions, if that's okay. Firstly, thank you so much. I think you yourself, Bruno, and your team at Woods Bagot have done an incredible job in creating a piece of architecture within an interior fit out. And we're incredibly happy with the space, where the flow and the ability, there's almost different pockets within the studio that can be utilized at the same time for a variety of different purposes. I think my first question for you is, though, it was very much a project where we're kind of pushing the boundaries of the capabilities of our product. Was there any element of that you found particularly difficult, or is there anything that perhaps that if you were to have your time again and knowing what you know now, you would be changing if you were to design the space again?
I think we probably could have gone harder, knowing how easily you actually did it.
Okay.
But to be honest, Blake, I mean, I credit to you, Jeremy, and your full team. I mean, honestly, I don't think there was ever a moment where you guys just said, okay, other than obviously your time frame that you had to build the thing and get in there, there was never a moment where you said, no, we're not doing that. So I think, to be honest, the project is the project because of what you are as well, and how open yourselves have been to what we put forward. So yeah, credit to the client, to be honest. I think it made our job super easy.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any element of the project that do you have a favorite? We talk about these moments and these pockets. Is there anything that you're most proud of?
I think for us, and I'll let Sue speak to any as well, but for us as these moments, I mean, the space is extraordinary when you're in it, right? And to be honest, I still it's not because we did it. I'm just on it, being quite honest. Like it is an amazing space still when you walk into it, and I go down there occasionally and just go, wow, the craft, the execution of it still, for Australia. And I mean, it is an amazing achievement what you've been able to do and execute. But I think for me, the spaces that are still the most surprising are these moments from outside looking in, where the unexpected ones, because we never designed the space with this lens going, what's this thing going to be read like from the outside? So I'm glad when Peter started throwing these photos up from his photo shoot, I was more excited about these moments than some of the interior moments. So they're the spaces they're the moments that surprise me most.
Definitely. I think this. Sorry, go Sue.
I was just going to say that, it started off as a functional brief, like we need a workplace for this many people, we need this, we need that. And so all those functional things, they were sort of put on the side. And the really big idea around, creating this sort of almost infinity diagram meant that we kind of moved from just dealing with the materials and what they can and can't do. So you go from timber being this kind of quite static material, and then applying, I suppose, the bigger idea and the way that it kind of expressed the whole organisation. So you sort of end up with this beautiful kind of inverted, inhabitable sculptural piece. And then the materiality and the way that Sculptform were able to kind of bring all their knowledge to how to make this thing. And it's quite seamless. Like, you do not kind of, it doesn't feel laboured in any way. And I think that's like a true testament to not only the relationship, but also this kind of merging between, like, we were the designers, but we were also the clients, because we're the end users of the space. And then Sculptform were not only our clients, but they were also the makers. So there's this really lovely kind of breaking down of all the rules of what you can and can't do. And then all the functions are very fluid. So, the workplace is everywhere. It's not just here's a pocket of the space that becomes the workplace. So I think that's the true testament to, your capability and also that what Bruno was saying about, just staying with the vision. What an amazing client to have that just sticks by their guns and says, make it as hard as you can for us because we want the challenge. Like that is incredible and probably once in a lifetime opportunity for us.
I'm just conscious of some of these questions. I was keen to answer some of the questions. Is the best way to maybe Kate or Blake just go through the chat and maybe you happy if we just answer some of the questions that are on the chat?
Definitely. So we'll read the first one out from you, Ren, which is, could you please explain the involvement of Revit drawings into the later process of the development? Also, what kind of timber is chosen to amplify the architectural feeling?
Sure. I'll start. I'll start with that one. So Revit, our workflow was basically Rhino, Grasshopper, and Revit. The Revit workflow was really just to execute the drawings. We could have pretty much stopped at what we had done, probably with all the work that we've done in Rhino and Grasshopper, and left it at that. With then just providing a lot of the output from that platform to Sculptform. But obviously with just some of the sort of spaces and the clearances and things that we needed to kind of maybe just mention up, the Revit platform was just something that was incorporated just to get some basic working plans out, and that was it. A lot of the detailing, like we said, was also a lot of those meetings on site were actually probably one of the most important. We got 10 minutes, we're about to be signed out. I'll power through some of these answers then. So the Rhino Revit, but also not to undersell the on-site discussions, which were absolutely critical, and having that ability to engage with the subcontractors. The question before that, which was about 2.4 meters, the space has a lower ceiling and a higher ceiling. So where you arrive is the higher ceiling, and then the rest of it compresses down into that lower ceiling height. So it's not all open, it's just half open at the very beginning. Probably some other questions going down that list. Synergy between client architectural team is inspiring. So that's my question and statement. Yes. How did you bring stock into the workshop? Well, again, some of these functional kind of questions around, the reality of how a workshop might work. If we had approached this in a traditional way, we would have got a traditional outcome, as in the workshop would have been hidden away, and that's something we deliberately didn't want to do. The sort of equipment that Sculptform have in the space is quite manageable, and it's quite small. So a lot of it comes literally through the front door and into the space. They clearly have their massive space, not in the city, obviously it's out in Bendigo, correct?
Yes.
So, that's the main space where a lot of the mass production happens. So really this is sort of a much smaller sort of interactive workshop to deal with much smaller things or smaller details. Other questions in comparison? I'm just wondering whether there are any others.
There's a question from Satish in the questions tab, which that workshop just you talking about dealing with them on a small scale really feeds into his question about he has an interest in rapid modular construction and what are some of the inhibitors and enablers. So as an organization, we have an off-the-shelf product range that works with our modular components. That the workshop is about working with an architect or a designer to work within kind of the window of what we feel is achievable from a modular design. And we can it's about speeding up the feedback loop. So we can sit down, someone can come in with a drawing or a design, we can work through it and find a workable solution with what we have off the shelf and what we think is possible. And then we will feed that back so we have a dedicated pre-construction team in Bendigo who really looks after that focus of bridging beautiful designs with buildable solutions. So that's where our capabilities as an organization come into play. Modular construction is who we are. It's in our DNA. And I think that it's the first step, that collab, which you guys have designed front and center, and we're incredibly proud of, is really where it all starts. It's where we learn, and then we evolve from there. There was, just on Yiren's question a bit earlier, Bruno, there was also what kind of timber is chosen to amplify the architectural feeling?
From memory, it's an oak.
Correct, yeah, it's an American white oak, and that was chosen for, in terms of, from a functional standpoint, it's a timber that bends really well. I'm not sure, you might be able to speak more to the design intent, Bruno. Was it always an American oak that we were exploring?
We looked at a number of options, but we landed on the American oak. I mean, Jeremy was quite keen to use the oak as well. Obviously, the oak is a stunning product, but it's also quite a hard product. So, the way that it also reacted in the steaming process was something that was a little bit, he was more comfortable with, because some of it was fascinating. And again, it's all experimental, but we've got a lot of photos of some of the steaming process gone wrong, and it just shows the experimental nature of. I'm not sure that every timber is probably well suited to some of the things we were trying to achieve. I think the oak was one that definitely stood up to some of those tighter radiuses, and also the bends, and it didn't also the splintering was also minimized as well. So it was, that was my understanding of it all.
Yeah, definitely. Oaks are, it's in terms of, like, you're completely correct when you say not all timber bends the same, and oak's incredible for that. It also has, when you bend a piece of timber, there's spring back, so the timber doesn't hold its shape when it cools down, and its spring back is kind of a lower ratio in comparison to other timbers. I think that might be it for questions, unless you guys have seen any other ones. I don't think so. So I will firstly thank you very much to everybody who has shared their morning with us. Again, we're incredibly proud to share the space. I hope you guys found it useful. Thank you to Bruno and Sue for attending today. It was actually really interesting. It was the first time I got to learn about the design brief in such great detail. So there's a few things there that I was really intrigued by. I'm just gonna, as we close out, I'm gonna play just a really short video of an event we recently had. But otherwise, thank you very much to everyone who attended today. Thank you all as well for attending.
Yeah, thanks, Blake. And I just wanted to do a call out for 4 projects that Bagot have in the Open House program. And a huge thank you to Chrissy Patras, who's moved on from Bagot, who really championed this project on site. And also thank you to Open House and Sculptform from all of us.
Thanks, Sue.